Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Chris.
Reporting for duty, sir.
Thank you. We've got Vince.
I'm late for a very important date.
Well, Chris was on time reporting for duty. You're late. This is unacceptable. Welcome to the show, everybody. My name's Kia. Hi. How are y'all doing? This is Some of My Friends Read Comics. We're going to read some comics. Before we jump into this week's episode, what's so funny? It's exactly what we do.
Some of my friends read comics. The show where some of my friends read comics.
That's our new tagline. Yeah, the show where some of my friends read comics. You interrupted my very serious moment here, Vince, because a comic book legend who we've talked about a couple times on this show, Marie Severin, passed away very recently, very end of August. She was in the Eisner Comics Hall of Fame. We talked about her when we read some Not Brand Ech and Power Man and Iron Fist, which was notable for being one of the first all-female creative teams, right?
Right, for superhero comics at least.
Right.
I'm sure there had been like romance books.
No, don't stereotype. Just because,
I mean, but that's you think about
right.
who was publishing comics in like the 40s and 50s. Like they weren't, and even Marie Severin, as if you can go back and look at her art, she's a great artist, but she worked as a colorist mostly. She worked for EC Comics in the 50s with her brother was an artist there, and then for Marvel Comics through the 60s, and she was an artist. And she did some great stuff in Doctor Strange and a few other books, but for a long time, it was like I don't know what to say other than it was just pure sexism that she was not the monthly artist of an ongoing comic for decades. They finally gave her Not Brand Ech, which I think went 10 issues or something like that, which was really, But it
was a joke comic,
Yeah, it was a silly comic. Like it wasn't her like art style, which. And it's also, it's a testament to her skills as a colorist and an inker that, like, if you read her Doctor Strange drawn issues, she can draw like Steve Ditko, where you have to look at it twice and be like, who drew this?
I think that was what my beef with Not Brand Ech was, is that it didn't look like a funny book. It looked like just a normal like Marvel Comics book from that era with like good classic art.
Mm-hmm.
She was really good.
It was kind of a mix of like, I don't know, like it's Wally Wood is the same kind of way where it's like Wally Wood has a cartoonist style and then a real style.
Yeah.
And then when you kind of mix the two of them, you're like, this is kind of weird.
Shout out to Marie Severin. Good stuff. Well, I'm sure at some point we will come across her work again on this show. But on to what we are reading for this week's episode. We are talking about Batwoman. Batwoman Elegy, specifically. It was a series, not really a series, it was part of the Detective Comics. In the year, it was about 2009. Detective Comics 854 through 860. Written by Greg Rucka with art by J.H. Williams III. Even before we start talking too much about this, I know next to nothing about Batwoman. Everything I've gotten was from basically these issues here. How far before this did Batwoman exist? How did she end up headlining Detective Comics instead of Batman? What's going on?
So there's a classic Batwoman that I don't even know the era of, and I know there's like a DC, like a Batman animated series movie, like Mystery of the Batwoman, but she doesn't have any continuity with this version, Kate Kane, who we've got in here. Kane, I'm assuming after the last
like
name
a Bob Kane.
Yeah, I would assume. Layers. She first showed up in 52. The weekly comic after...
So very recently before this.
Yeah, Infinite Crisis was like 06, I want to say? 05,
Something
06,
like that.
somewhere around there. So she was in 52, which ran for a year, a weekly comic. That was written by Greg Rucka, as we've mentioned, Mark Waid, Grant Morrison, and Mark Waid. And I think Greg Rucka probably wrote the Batwoman stuff. The reason why this is taking over Detective Comics is this is also during Grant Morrison's run of Batman where Bruce Wayne was dead. So Bruce Wayne had just died in the issue 853 Detective Comics, which you may remember Neil Gaiman's Whatever Happened to the Cape Crusader two-parter, which took place in Batman and Detective Comics 853. So Bruce Wayne is not Batman, and basically Morrison has been given free reign to just do whatever he wants with Dick Grayson in the Bat books, and so Detective doesn't have Batman. Although you'll notice, I think later in one of these issues, Batman does meet Kate Kane, Batwoman, and Rucka made a specific point to not make it obvious that it was Dick Grayson, so that when people are reading it 10, 12 years later, like we are right now, we wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, and I really didn't. It did just seem like it could have been just Batman. Yeah, great.
So he designed it to be evergreen, and I'm like, good job.
Very cool. And we should talk about a little bit more about the creative team as well. Greg Rucka, probably just most well known for a lot of his crime comics. Had a pretty important run on Wonder Woman. A little bit of everything this guy's done. Mainly DC work, but I like crime comics constantly. I think he does.
Yeah, he does a lot, and also with a lot of female leads. He's kind of known for between Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
Queen and Country is a really great spy book that started as a comic and ended as a prose novel series. He also writes the Atticus Kodiak novels. He's a good writer all the way around. I love Gotham Central that he wrote with Ed Brubaker. I just started reading Lazarus, which is a current book of his. That's kind of like Game of Thrones with people who resurrect themselves, is how it's built. It's with Michael Lark, also a frequent collaborator of him and Brubaker. It's pretty good. I like the first trade, and my library has the rest of them, so support your local libraries and take all their books. So
he did Gotham Central, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
Lark did that, and he also did a lot of fill-in issues of Captain America with Brubaker.
That's right.
So Brubaker and Rucka kind of blend together in my mind a lot, but Queen and Country is really great. Whiteout is that Kate Beckinsale kind of in the snow like investigation film that was based on one of Rucka's books. But I would probably recommend Queen and Country. That would be my lock of the week if you wanted to read some more Greg Rucka.
You know, I've never read Queen and Country. Maybe one of these days we should do it for the show.
If you like the Amazon Prime original series Jack Ryan and you want some more spy stuff, but a little more realistic.
None of that sounds appealing. None of that sounds appealing to me at all.
If you want a little more just like realistic spy stuff, I say Queen and Country is your way to go. And it's only like 24 issues and 3 prose novels. It's pretty great though.
Cool. Yeah, cool. A lot of people can't tell the difference between Greg Rucka and Ed Brubaker, but I can. If redheads ye see, Greg Rucka it be.
And then J.H. Williams III.
I don't know what the Brubaker equivalent of that limerick is, but I feel like that's the easiest way to know you're in a Greg Rucka book. Is there like a redheaded female character, large and in charge? Because if so, Greg Rucka might be writing it.
I don't think there's any redheads in Queen and Country. I believe Tara Chase is blonde.
That's so true.
And Kate Beckinsale's got brown hair.
Ed Brubaker.
Yeah. And Wonder Woman is not a redhead.
No, but there are. Well, I guess there is a redhead in his Wonder Woman run, but yeah, it's not Wonder Woman.
All right. Away from redheads, let's talk about the art. Oh, damn it, we're gonna have to talk about redheads. So J.H. Williams III. This guy's great. Man, is this the first time we've talked about him on the show?
We had Promethea with him.
Right. Promethea was great. I feel like this is even more beautiful.
This is like the book, yeah.
It's next level. Like, he got nominated for Eisners for this thing. It is gorgeous. I kind of just want to jump right into the series here. And the first issue, 854, it just sets the mood so perfectly where, like, Batwoman's on a roof trying to track down, bad guys, talking to some lackey. And he's like, no, I can't tell you. They'll kill me. And you kind of, like, picture Batman, and normally in this case he'd be like, no, I'll fucking kill you if you don't tell me, minus the cursing. But instead, she kind of pulls him in close and is like, I won't let them. And, like, the whole background changes into something. It's just gorgeous. And it really does set the tone for everything. You just kind of instantly like this character and know a little bit more of what they're about. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, these first 3 pages kind of set the tone of how Williams is going to play with his art. So, like, Batwoman, when she's generally Batwoman, is kind of like in this painted, ultra detail, ultra shaded style. and she's got a very striking image because she's got like pale, like super white, like vampire skin, with like bright red lipstick and bright red hair, and then the costume is amazing. But then when she pulls him in, like all that shading and fine detail goes away. And it's almost like, and you can kind of tell like thematically, like when she's not putting up her tough girl, Batwoman image, the art completely changes. And it's much more just like standard art style, and it's not shaded and it's not dark and it's not like ultra realistic. And it's really fascinating to kind of watch the book jump through those things, and kind of see like how characters are portrayed when they're in her Batwoman world versus her like real persona of Kane. It's really cool. Like her dad and the werewolf later are both shaded in different ways. It's really cool.
The sort of the regular human scenes, like out of costume scenes, all have a very like a Tim Sale kind of quality to them. The guy who did all the colors here, like Daredevil Yellow and Spider-Man Blue and all those,
Long
and
Halloween.
Long Halloween. Yeah, there's something about like the faces that just really reminded me of his art style in throughout this book.
Well, Kate really reminds me weirdly of Amanda Palmer, and I don't know if he was directly drawing on Amanda Palmer, but that's like her out of costume persona looks and feels and carries herself like the singer Amanda Palmer to me.
I can see that. And then immediately after this, we get this scene with Batman where Batman's like, "Okay, you're doing fine, but do something about that long hair of yours. Like that's going to be a problem for you." And she's like, "Okay,
you're gonna get into trouble."
Right.
Like
exactly right. And like we find out, it's not even her real hair. She purposefully wears the extra long, flowy red hair because she's got short red hair instead. Yeah, it's great.
That's such a great
so
reveal. It's such a great reveal. And Williams is really given like a lot of latitude to tell the story without dialogue here. Like, he just says like, "Take off the hair. I'll take that under advisement." And then there's just 3 panels of her just taking it off, like telling you exactly what you need to do.
Yeah. Actually, Spider-Woman in the 1970s had this exact same thing where she had a wig for this hair, and then Brian Michael Bendis never read that issue and thought it was her real hair.
Oh, man.
Did Marie Severin create Spider-Woman?
I designed the costume, yes.
Okay.
Didn't actually draw for it, unfortunately.
Oh.
Right.
So what else is going on in this issue? So she has been tracking down this the leader
it
of some.
also reveals that she's a lesbian pretty quietly.
Yeah,
on that first page, just kind of, and that's great because those people.
It doesn't have to be overt.
It doesn't have to be like I am a lesbian character. They're just like they just kind of roll it in, and you're like, you better catch up on these cues, guys, because we're gonna keep going because this is a normal relationship because it's fucking 2009.
Her girlfriend kind of breaks up with her at breakfast because she's been up all night being Batwoman, and then she's like, "You've been out all night partying. What is this?" I love that Batwoman's dad is the man at the computer for her, which is really nice. We, do kind of learn that they've got a bit of a sad past. The mom's not around anymore, unfortunately. She died in an incident. But Batwoman has been, throughout all this, she's tracking down the leader of some covenant, they keep calling them. I don't know how much of this I'm supposed to have gathered, but they're just like bad people who do bad things, and she's looking for them. But there's apparently a lot of these covenants. How important was this? Do you guys know anything more about the covenant angle?
This was the less interesting stuff to me. And actually, like, this first 4-issue arc, I'm kind of like, the art is beautiful, but I don't really care about the story.
Interesting.
It's the last 3 issues, and specifically the 5th issue that we read, which is 858. Like, that's the, holy shit, this is an amazing book issue.
Wow, I disagree completely. I really like the first 4, and the last 3, I'm like, okay, you're filling in with the backstory, but I kind of got all that.
Then, if I recall correctly, the New 52, which happened in 2011, this book relaunched with the #1 with Batwoman, and I think it picked up a lot of the threads from this.
Okay. So I guess all we really need to know, they're bad people. She's chasing after them. Cool.
But there was it was a story element because the only other story she had been in was the 52, and so I forget what they're called, but basically they're like, look, we got to get the two named person and murder her, and that'll make this prophecy get fulfilled. They did stab her through the heart, but Renee Montoya, the new Question, saved her life, and she was able to like fight back, and so I guess now she's like trying to figure out what they're up to.
I see. I'm glad you brought up the Question. We didn't mention all these issues have backups with the Question, just like our Blue Beetle issues that we read a while back.
The trade does not, but...
okay, so yeah, the individual issues did. We might talk about this a little bit later. They're not really super important to the series, but fun.
I thought they were really good, actually.
Yeah,
I mean, they're not like reinventing
yeah.
the wheel or anything. A lot of them are just like, there's like one that's just 8 pages of fighting, but I'm like, this is still good. Like, I really like Renee Montoya Question.
Did Rucka write them?
Yes.
Because Rucka wrote, I don't think he created Montoya, but he definitely took her under his wing for Gotham Central. Right?
Yeah.
And then Gotham Central obviously ended during Infinite Crisis. So this is where he got to hang out with Renee for a little while.
Yeah. So Vince or Chris, one of you briefly mentioned the prophecy. And I think that might be what really turned you off, Vince, if I know you well. And that's the part that I didn't care too much about either. It's like too much mystical stuff and like prophecy, like, okay, I don't care, let's just get to the good stuff. But I feel like this book had enough of the good stuff to make me just be able to wave that off and not care, I
just don't like murder cults with weird costuming. And also, like, the villain, which we'll get into with the next issue, is Alice. And like on an academic, like theoretical level, I really like the fact that she only speaks in quotes from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. But it's really difficult to, like, make any sense of what the fuck she's saying.
I think that's okay, because I'm just like, oh, she's a crazy lady. I'm not supposed to worry about what she's trying to say.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And just like, let it fill in with the mood,
I just feel like it's a little too clever.
I get that, but I just wasn't trying to make sense of it, so it worked for me.
And I also just don't like her.
Go ahead.
I just don't like how this develops into like the hunky werewolf guy. I'm just like, I don't care about this.
The werewolf guys. All right, we'll get to the werewolf. So she's tracking down the leader of this cult. The end of the first issue is she pulls a gun on the leader. What? Is this who Batwoman is, pulling guns on people? No, don't worry. It's gas pellets. She kind of like uses them to get the leader of this cult, Alice, outside, disarms her, really just wants to talk to her, get information like, hey, why are you guys coming after me? And Alice has this poison blade hidden in her mouth. Like, I've just skipped through like 10, 20 pages here of action, and it was like, I really enjoyed it. It's just like a fun, very well laid out scene where everything is super clear. You know what's going on, both due to the art and the writing. So I think that this is the moment when I was really sold. It was just like action where I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I knew enough to make sure that I was still with it.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, Vince, but as someone that has now read this like for the second or third time, I do like that Alice talks in like riddles, but it's not nonsense. Like, you can figure out what she's saying. Mm-hmm. Like, because Batwoman is like, why are you guys trying to kill me? And everything Alice is saying is like, we're not. Like, what's your problem?
Mm-hmm.
But she can't just say that. She has to like talk in all these goofy riddles.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
And so she's like, give me a straight answer. And she obviously can't do that because all she does is talk in Alice quotes.
Oh, she's so crazy. I wonder what happened to her to make her so crazy.
And I do like she points out, like, we already got one Alice in Wonderland villain in Gotham. We don't need another one.
Yeah,
like,
what is this?
They just hang that lampshade. Chris, this issue, especially because she gets drugged, starts hallucinating. It reminds me a lot of Promethea and like the panel structure and the kind of like wispy way the panels are. But I personally like this a lot more than Promethea, and I know you're a huge fan of Promethea and probably followed Williams a lot more. How do you feel this compares to Promethea?
I really like this. I do feel like if you read the New 52 Batwoman, J.H. Williams, I mean, I think he's a great artist, but I do think he relies on like doing the bat logo as a cross page kind of I don't know what to call it,
like
kind
a panel layout.
Like a bridge.
He likes to do. He kind of relies on certain things a little bit more once he's not being told by Alan Moore to like do crazy stuff. It is cool, and I really like it. I love the the shot, it's one of my favorite panels of this particular issue. The shot from inside Alice's mouth as you see the poisoned thing she's got, as she like releases it from like wherever she's got it in her mouth, to then like draw it out and slice her with it. Like, that's such a cool shot, because that's the kind of thing you can't do in a movie. Like, you can't shoot from inside someone's mouth, seeing what they're doing as someone else is talking in that way. Like, I was like, it's an anti-cinematic moment, because you can't do that. But I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite panels as well. It was really great. So this blade pops out of Alice's mouth, who, by the way, I also didn't mention, I love Alice's design and how she's such a sharp contrast to the rest of the world, like so bright and white compared to like this very dark nighttime kind of stuff. So Alice pulls this blade out of her mouth, poisons Batwoman with it, and Batwoman is staggering through the woods. And her dad kind of sees that, I guess they have all that equipment set up, that her life signs are kind of low, and so he runs out to save her and finds her. And the bad guys catch up with them, and guess who pops out? Monsters. Werewolves. And this is when I was like, oh shit, what is this book? I had no idea what I was getting into.
Oh, you haven't read this before?
I had no idea. No. I guess, yeah, you guys had both read this before. We didn't mention. I'd never read any of this before. Who are these people? And I thought they were like screwed because the bad guys are going to like sick their werewolves on them. No, other way around. These are the good guys. We got a werewolf. We got a tentacle guy. We got a reptilian lady. And this is like the good side of the cult. They even have a name. What are they called? Like the something.
Believers.
The True Believers. That's right. Maybe think of Stan Lee. They are the True Believers, and they like have to save Batwoman because they're like, oh, we thought you were gonna be dead, but it turns out you're alive. And they're like speaking in riddles, of course.
Yeah, I do like whenever the father is like, what have you been poisoned with? I've got a bunch of different options here. And the werewolf is like, let me check, and just basically like smells her breath, and you just see like his view of like her sense. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's this kind of poison. And he's like, oh, okay, I do have an antidote for that.
It was great. I loved it. We also, like, every time these beasties show up, there's like this great, almost B-movie kind of art style that he switches to for them, and I love it. It's like painted, or at least it looks painted, and man, it blew me away. I love. Yeah,
Dave Stewart's also a hero of this book. He's the colorist.
Yes, he does a lot of the other kind of coloring stuff for all the cool people that we read about. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know Vince cares more about lettering historically than us, but the lettering is also really good. I like Alice's like very distinctive, like, you're not going to be confused like, oh, is Batwoman talking right now if Alice is talking, because she has her own font and her own like bubbles.
Same with the werewolf.
She's crazy.
And when the werewolf switches from human to wolf, it like gradually switches to the different style of lettering. Man, I love. That's the main reason I would love to be a werewolf, is so that I had unique lettering. It'd be so cool. So after they get saved by these beasties, we go to a little dinner party for her dad. So we didn't mention her dad is a army sergeant. No, that doesn't sound right. What is it? Lieutenant? Some rank.
Some kind of career military guy.
Yeah, one of those guys. And their mother, Batwoman's mother, used to be as well before she met a tragic end. And she's not too happy about this new lady that her dad is seeing. Well, they kept calling her like stepmom. Are they married? I guess they would have to be, right?
Yes. But
they don't seem to live together because the dad's doing all this Batwoman stuff with her. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
no. I mean, he lives with his wife. He just
pops
a lot
over.
Of time.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, pops over, does a little computer stuff. Great.
Yeah.
But they
and
have
it's
this.
Actually, it's a really convoluted way, because there was already a Teen Titans character who is the God. I forget what is her Flamebird, I think. And she was Batgirl or Batwoman's like sidekick in the Silver Age, and so in this, it's like, oh, okay, they're actually like step cousins or step niece. I don't know. They're related.
Okay.
And that's it's not this storyline, but I think the next storyline that Batwoman has is all about dealing with this like sociopath who's killing like teenagers, and she's like, oh no, she could be trying to kill this girl I know, and she's like, don't worry, I can take care of myself because I am a friend of the Teen Titans.
That's great. Don't worry, I am a friend of the Teen Titans. I can handle it. So Batwoman goes to this dinner party because she's like kind of being dragged there, and but she does it like a little bit of a protest. Puts on her nice tuxedo. She's not wearing no dress. And they have this great lesbian tuxedo meet cute. It is a wonderful scene where they're dancing together, talking about their past loves and what didn't work out, and I'm like, yeah, that's a nice little meet cute. But
I do feel like she should, like, for full disclosure, be like, do you know Renee Montoya? Because I kind of used to date her.
Nope.
This is Maggie Sawyer, who was also in Gotham Central, so she does know Montoya.
Definitely.
Yeah, I do. I love. Was Maggie Sawyer a lesbian in Gotham Central?
I don't think we ever saw her date, but
maybe that's it.
Yeah, I don't remember that being explicitly stated.
Yeah, I don't. She came from like some Superman books that we're reading. I read Death of Superman recently, and I'm like, Maggie Sawyer, what's up? How you doing?
Yeah, she's in a lot of that stuff.
Good old Maggie.
I don't think because if you watch the animated series, she does have a female partner in that show, which is kind of crazily progressive when you think about it. It was a children's show from like 1999.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I love that series.
But apparently, Kane only dates cops.
Kane only dates cops.
She has a type.
But this was going so well, but she's got to run because Batwoman business comes up, and her dad's got to run because it's like military business too. What?
Yeah, her dad disappears, and then she calls when she's like, "Uh-oh."
Yeah. Dad's been kidnapped by Alice. Oh boy, rescue time. So they're doing the whole rescue thing. The evil cult is like using a bunch of people that they have infiltrated the military with to kind of get in and steal some weapons. And she gets in there. But a lot of action in this issue. It was all good. Nothing that is super like important to the plot. But at one point, the dad kind of does recognize something about Alice. Like, what's going on with this girl? Wait, are you Beth? And I'm like, who's Beth? What's this business about? The whole issue ends with Alice hanging on to Batwoman, and Batwoman is like, hey, I don't want to kill you. I don't want to drop you here. And Alice just says, like, oh, you have our father's eyes. And then, like, pulls out a knife, stabs her in the arm, and
she also changes font then.
She does, that's right.
Good old Todd Klein, you motherfucker.
Yeah, because she's not quoting Alice in Wonderland right there. There's nothing about father's eyes.
Yeah. And so it's like, what the are they like sisters? What is this? And that's the end of the 4-issue arc there. So the next 3 issues that are included in this trade are all flashbacks, kind of filling you in on what's going on here. And kind of telling a little bit more of the story. 858, that's the 5th issue that we're reading, is basically all about, 20 years ago, is about the twins, Kate Kane and Elizabeth Kane. And how at the same time that like her mom was captured and killed by some military business. We don't ever find out exactly what it was.
You're just fast forwarding through this. Okay.
This
858
you want to talk about more?
858 is like a masterclass. It's the last 5
pages. Okay, go ahead. You talk about it. Yeah.
Well, more so like I remember. I think I was more blown away because I kind of gotten used to the Batwoman art style. And so I was like, well, the first arc ended, and now we got vastly different art, which is kind of colored like a classic, more like like a Michael Lark book, or
This is the one that reminded me
right.
more of Tim Sale even more.
Yeah, it's definitely like it's more like just like general colors, not much shading, maybe a little bit of like single shadow, but not shaded or anything. To the point where I'm like, okay, well, this is a fill-in artist. Obviously, the art's completely changed. It's art two. Arc two. I'm sure Williams takes a long time, and then I was like, oh, wait, the fuck, this is also Williams. And then that just like, I think this is when I'm like, oh, holy shit, this guy's a great artist.
That blew me away a little bit.
Because I was kind of used to like Alias, having like its flashback scenes be drawn by a different dude, not Michael Gaydos, and so I was expecting that. And so this was like, oh my gosh. I mean, we can kind of blaze through it. It's kind of, what I like about this book, and I think Blue Beetle did this actually just a few episodes ago, is it has a full adventure in the present day and then decides to give you the origin story. It doesn't do those.
Yeah.
It doesn't do the origin story first. And actually, I feel like that serves this book better to do its origin story as its second arc, and do like the full like build up to, because the next issue is like 5 years ago and then 4 years ago.
Right. And to me, like, it definitely, like a comic is a kind of medium you can go back to and reread. And so it's cool that it does encourage rereading, because there's stuff when you reread it that you don't really pick up on in your first read. You're just like, what the hell is going on?
Right.
A lot of the first issue.
Exactly. But I mean, everything is there. Like, I mean, because I've read this like several times. Like, everything you pick up on is like, yep, this is all here. But man, those last 5 pages where the kids are being brats, and then like they get they all get kidnapped and like bags put over their faces, and it's all in black. And then like the next shot you see is like one of the bags has got blood coming out of it. The mom is obviously dead, and there's been like there's just been just like a murder scene. It's just been like a disaster. And then like the dad carrying Kate out, like while Kate's looking at her dead sister and her dead mom, and like the focus is just on her. It's just like. It's just really great, like, just storytelling. I thought this was, like, the most starkest, like, bleakest, like, violent art I'd seen up to this point. And I was like, holy shit.
Right. And, like, you saw in the second issue that the cover of this issue is her mom, like, in the, the assassination style, like, hood over her head. And so she saw that when she was poisoned. It was like, that's what her like freak out was. She's like, I'm starting to see mom, and it's, that's what her last memory of it is. So it's like, oh, okay, this is why, she's this way.
So yeah, that issue was great. I don't know if the next two were as great for me. But I guess now that I know this is really like the first time we've seen this character, it is better. I don't know why. I just had this impression like, okay, there must just be some other stuff that I don't know. And it felt like almost a retelling. And I was like, why are we retelling this stuff?
Oh, okay.
But it was not a retelling because it was the first time anything existed.
Actually,
so,
you know what the art reminds me of?
Impression.
Yeah. Actually, you know what the art reminds me, though, is David Mazzucchelli, Batman Year One. That's what this art looks like.
That's true.
Like, that's how it's colored. Which is contemporary, quote unquote, with Batman Year One, because now we're 7 years later. I like this issue though too. This is a great like little like political FU scene, and also like a great like ethical dilemma.
Where she has to quit, or like she's come under investigation because she's gay, which is strange.
And they want her to lie, but she refuses to lie because that's against the military code. Is she a Marine?
I thought she was a cop.
She's an army. She's army.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she one of their like things is that they're not supposed to lie, and she felt that code was more important. And I love when she reveals to her dad like that she's been kicked out of the military, and she goes, "Well, I don't lie," and like his instantly like super proud of you, daughter.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, that was sweet. I do like that. She's like the best of her class, basically, and that the way it reads is that it's basically just jealousy that somebody reports just her. Of like, look, this girl is like, she's better than all of us, and so somebody is just petty enough to be like, okay, well, I'm reporting her.
Yeah, because no one reported her paramour.
Yeah.
It's It's a good scene. It's a good
yeah.
It's a really good scene of like showing her taking off that ring. It's hard to show like animation and like small actions like that in a comic, but also comics can let you like slow the action down and take a whole page to do it. So the medium gives you good and takes away things. It's really good. It's a really good.
Yeah, it's a fun issue, and then I really like the last issue. I guess we should also mention we're not covering those question issues, but there's a really great scene, Vince. I would recommend checking out.
I have
these
the original
backups.
issues hiding somewhere in this house. I'll find them.
Because I think it's the second backup is so like she's looking for a missing person, like this wife has disappeared, and her husband had like been asking questions and then got the crap beaten out of him. And so she goes and investigates. She basically starts like locally, just like who's behind this, like who beat this guy up. And like so she finds this house, and like there's a handcuff in the bedroom. She's like, okay, this is the place. I've got his like ID and everything. And then at the end of the first backup, like the guy and like 4 of his crew show up, and like, looks like you're in the wrong house, lady. She's like, actually, it looks like I'm in the right house.
Yeah.
And then like, go ahead.
Yeah. It's just like such a perfect like. It's not, again, like you mentioned, it's not a story we haven't seen before. Like, she's tracking down some human trafficking stuff, which is sort of like this well that I feel like people come back to a lot with crime comics, because it is like one of the worst crimes. And so I'm glad it's a well that people come back. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it does work so well as a story, because it's just like instantly bad guys. You understand what's going on, and it's just like perfectly broken up into these little chunks as well. Like, now she's gonna go beat up this henchman and get some information from them, and just as she gets the information or is about to, they kill him. Oh no! And she's got to find some more information somewhere else. And it's like it's perfect. I really loved it.
Yeah, I really like the escalation of moving from like the very localist level to like going all the way up the chain. But I love that fight scene, especially like she punches out those first 2 guys, and then the guy like tells his like like pit bull or like Doberman or whatever it is to like get her, but like she's already dealt with the dog, so the dog just turns and runs away. I'm just like, that's such a cute scene. Like Greg Rucka, it's a weird compliment, because it's like he's really good at not overriding and just letting his artists tell the story in a way that you're just like, I get it. Like the question's a badass. Like she just goes into a fight and is just like, whatever. Like, y'all want to do something? Let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah, she's great. But back to Batwoman. The very last issue. But actually, Chris, you said there was something about that you wanted to point out. It's kind of like her saying, I'm going to become Batwoman now. Great.
Yeah, I like that scene a lot with her dad. Basically, because she is not in the military anymore, she's basically just been like requisitioning stuff and stealing it off the military base, like all this non-lethal ordnance. So she's got like tear gas and all this stuff, and so she's basically like year 1 Batmaning, but with like a gas mask.
I think it's amazing. And like also we get a few glimpses of the modern stuff that's going on at this time. She's getting Alice's blood tested alongside her own to find out if they really are twins. And yeah, they are. And so this has a lot of like parallels of or not parallels, but just kind of showing her relationship with her dad and how important he was. But she's a little upset with him because he lied about her being dead. He was like, I mean, what was I supposed to do? You're a little girl. And it's like, that's just the easier way to do it. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
So, yeah, she saw the corpse of what looked like another little girl, but it wasn't her sister.
That's right. It wasn't her sister. It was some other girl.
Yep. So she met Montoya, like she pulled her over when she's like being a party girl after she's kicked out of the military. They break up in the last issue. And then in this issue, like Montoya like busts like some kind of crappy like dive bar, and Kane is in it, and she's like, I'm gonna get you out of trouble on this, but you need to get your life together, blah blah blah. She's like, I don't need you to take care of me.
Oh, I hope they end up together. No spoilers. I have no idea what's going on in the DCU. great. And that's pretty much the end of the story. I really want to know where this thing is going. I might have to keep on reading these things. I assume you two have read this before. Did you finish kind of reading out the whole thing?
So it only went like 3 or 4 more issues with art by Jock, which I don't ever think was even collected because it was just like a small amount. And then I think Scott Snyder took over and he had it for a year, and then it was the New 52.
Wow. Yeah, there's only there's 2 other storylines before the Batwoman ongoing, but I think you can just start with that because
just skip to Batwoman. Makes sense.
Yeah, there's like I said, there's one with a serial killer, and then there's a bunch of business with Dick Grayson, Batman, and I think is it Batman and Robin, where they take Batwoman and like they go to the Lazarus Pit and they have to like try to revive a Batman body. But it
makes sense.
It comes back wrong, and so they gotta blow it up. And then Batwoman almost dies, but then they use the Lazarus Pit. It's not.
All right, cool.
It's a Ra's al Ghul type issue more than it is like a Batwoman story. She's just in it.
All right, that's cool.
And it kind of had an unceremonious ending. The ongoing went on for a while, and Rucka wrote it for a while, and then he had. I don't know what happened with him in DC. It's usually spats with him and the editors. He has them every 3 or 4 years, and then goes away for 3 or 4 years.
And I think Williams was like co-writing or co-plotting or something like that from the beginning of the New 52 series. But yeah, then it's just him for like a year or 2, or a year and a half or so, and then he gets pissed off and leaves too.
Yeah.
I feel like most comics end up having unceremonious endings. Or ceremonious endings that are just kind of a letdown,
Yeah.
So how about this? Comics just never end. Oh, wait a minute. That's how they work. Great. Cool.
I do think, comics are such a great empathy machine. Just to very briefly, I hope you don't have to deal with this, listener. There's a group of people on Twitter mostly who are complaining all the time about how comics aren't good anymore because there's too many women writing and also starring in comics. Wow. And that they're stealing our comic jobs. That Iron Man is a black woman for like 30 seconds is a slight against, decency. But comics are empathy machines in a way that just like movies are, where it's just like, if you can read these first 6 issues and not be like, okay, don't ask, don't tell is bullshit. Like, Kane is awesome and she can do what she wants. And like, you just want to read her adventures because she's a good person who also happens to fight crime, she's, in a way, she's more moral than I don't know if she's more moral than Batman, but you know what I mean? Like, she's not the type of, like, oh, I'm just going to, like, rough everybody up and see what happens. Like,
I bet she's easier to connect to than Batman, for sure. I think. I know Batman's probably more popular. Probably. Definitely.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But she's more of just, like, a regular person, too. Like, to me, like, Batman, I've never been a huge Bruce Wayne Batman fan because, like, it's so disconnected. It's like, oh, yeah, if you go to, like, ninja school for, like, 5 years... to become the greatest ninja, I guess everybody could become a great ninja.
I did that, but I forgot the part about inheriting the Wayne Enterprises thing. So
it's just like if you have that level of like luxury, I do like that she's kind of on a budget where she's like, okay, well, you can spend like a year and a half like learning Krav Maga, like super good.
Yeah, I love that.
But she's still basically a person,
Yeah.
Well, I think the reason I like Kate out of costume, I think she's far more interesting than her Batwoman stuff, and I think that's what I kind of gravitated towards. I like her out of costume. I think she's just an interesting character to kind of like hang out with and like see her perspective. And her superhero stuff, I'm like, I don't really care. I care, but not to the extent that I'm like, I think you're really interesting in how you like deal with your dad and your girlfriends and like meet Maggie Sawyer. I like that whole like kind of world of hers more interesting, and just like her like. Trauma just is a fascinating story to me.
I liked her superhero stuff because I feel like you see a lot of the intricacies of her character in the way she acts as Batwoman. And it's just so slightly different from most other superheroes, but enough to set her aside.
Well, and she's just such a striking image. Like the way her
yeah.
costume is designed, it's just amazing. Like it's a really beautiful costume. I'm interested to see how they do it in the movie or the TV show. I can't remember which. We didn't look up what Arrowverse show Ruby Rose is going to do it in.
Ruby Rose,
Star of the Meg in John Wick Chapter 2.
Never saw either.
I think she's a ballerina, is what Kimberly told me.
Oh, cool. Is the Meg that shark movie?
With Jason Statham.
All right, that's cool. That's cool.
She plays the shark.
She does not kick. She does not kick a shark in the face. I was very disappointed.
Too bad. So I think we're done with Batwoman. We got to get to Crisis. Anything else we got to say about Batwoman before we hop off?
I think I'm good now.
Yeah, check it out. It's good stuff.
Do we have to talk about Crisis?
We're not going to talk much about it. We're on Crisis on Infinite Earths number 10. Great cover on this one. Man, good stuff. Really, it's just like an overture to this issue, if not the series as a whole, where there's going to be some big shit happening and just heroes floating around all over the place, and that's it.
Yeah, there's a lot of superhero fighting supervillain in a place where you're like, where are they? What's going on?
This episode did feel slightly more interesting than a lot of the others to me. They're journeying back to the beginning of time.
Yeah. So let's take a step back because that's only that's only the back half of the issue.
I guess it is.
So one, this book needs an editor. I'm not convinced there's an editor on this book. Two,
I had my own idea about that, but I'll talk about it later. Go ahead.
So the first half of the issue is picking up from the previous issue, issue 9, where Pasimon killed Brainiac, but not really because Brainiac comes back within like literally 3 panels. And he's like, I was watching you from the beginning, and I knew you were going to try to pull this shit. But other than stop you from pulling this shit to begin with, I'd let you do it and then killed you. I don't know. It's really dumb. But they have the whole like villains kind of fighting the heroes on all the different planets, but it's like heroes, a lot of the heroes I don't know if we've even seen in the previous 9 issues, or if we have, like, we don't really remember them, and it's just kind of like, I don't know. And I'll talk about the other like parallel story going on. We'll get to that later. And then like around page 12, then it's like, oh yeah, we got to go fight the Anti-Monitor, and so everybody just stops fighting because the first 12 pages don't fucking matter anymore. And then everybody, all the heroes and villains team up to go to the beginning of time to go fight Anti-Monitor. And this is where the book, like, I know that this is one of the first major events of modern comics, but if you're going to have a cast of literally 700, maybe all have them working towards the same goal, or like working towards something that makes similar sense, and then have like a little flourishes where like Jay Garrick gets to go fast or some bullshit like that. And so the back half of this issue, Kia, I thought was pretty good. What'd you think?
That's what I was going to say. Like, it started to make a little bit more sense. It felt like there was a common goal. There was some, like, Superboy gets involved from Earth Prime, and he's like, whoa, I've never gone this fast before with, like, the Flashes powering me. We're actually traveling through time. Whoa! That kind of stuff.
Well, they mentioned, like, Superboy, like, in, like, the first 12 pages, and I'm like, when the fuck did Superboy Prime ever become a thing? They act like he's been around this whole book, and that's the thing I really have a problem with Crisis. They act like certain characters have been around this whole time.
Yeah. Well, because I think the idea is you're not just reading this series. Which this series does not do a good job of explaining that. It's that you really do have to be kind of... Here's what I was going to say this book needs. It just needs text just blacked out and gotten rid of. Like, we need more montages of just like, hey, all these people are fighting, and you really don't have to know what's going on with them. Because that's why I like this issue a little bit more, is because I've gotten used to that. And so when there are like these big pages, like going from Earth this to Earth that to Earth this, and they're fighting, I'm like, oh, I know this isn't going to matter anymore. Great. I can just kind of enjoy these pictures for what they are and keep on going. And for me, that made this book so much better.
Yeah. It reminds me, like, I really like Avengers Forever, which is kind of similar in some ways, time travel shenanigans. But like, they picked like 6 guys and are like, these are the main ones, and like, these are our characters, and so they're going to be in lots of different situations, and it's going to be like, hey, for more on this, like, read this classic comic because that's the one they're in. You don't have to read it.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
you can, if you don't read it, you're like, oh, who was that guy? And you'll never know because you didn't read that issue. And the last page is like, here's the like, the issues we traveled through that you can reference. So like, if you want,
Yeah.
if in the first issue, if the good monitor was like, here's our team, like Old Man Superman, Batman, one of the Teen Titans, like 5 other people, then I'd be like, okay. And then every issue, they're like meeting different corners of the DC universe and like
Right.
helping them or
Perfect.
whatever.
I'd
And I'm
buy
like,
that in a second.
then you can do all these crossovers, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, but you know that the important part is, like getting to the finish line, like trying to figure out how to get these, things resolved. But instead, they spent the last 2 issues being like, but what's this guy up to? Like, what's that guy's name? Like
Blue Devil.
Fire, whatever, Firestorm.
Firehawk or Firestorm?
Yeah, Firestorm and his sort of like this girl that seems to kind of like him. She's like, look at this costume I made. And you're like, this should not be in the main series.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
Yeah.
And you're right, Chris. You bring up a very good point because like Infinity Gauntlet did a good job because like this is where Cap's team is and this is where the other guy's team is, and so like there were like 10 heroes with Captain America, but it was Captain America's group. Like we get that.
Yeah.
Like,
And you don't need to know who they all are. It's like if you are a super fan, you're like, oh, of course, who could forget Darkhawk?
Yeah.
But if you're not, you're like, who's the robot guy? Like
Right.
you don't need to know who that guy is.
But on the opposite end, what this is doing is like my big beef with Civil War, especially like in rereading, is that like Peter Parker reveals that he's Spider-Man, and then that thread is never picked up again.
Yeah,
And-
then
and
it's
it
like
makes
go read
Yeah.
Spider-Man if you want to see how this story shakes out.
And that's you mentioned that with Avengers Forever, that it's like, okay, go check this book out if you want to learn a little bit more on this. And if you don't go read that, it's okay because you know what you don't know, and that's something that this book doesn't do. I'd never don't know what I don't know. I don't know if that,
Right.
but like I don't know what I'm supposed to know and what I'm not supposed to know, especially because everything is given such equal weight. And
Yeah.
so it's really impossible to tell what's important. And so I think it is just from like the rhythm of this book that I've gotten used to it now. And I feel like I have defeated Crisis on Infinite Earth. We'll see if that holds true for the next 2 issues. But
And a lot of it is, it's because of, it's just kind of natural coming back to it, is stuff like Infinity Inc. That was a series that existed. And I know you're like, what the hell is that?
exactly right.
But, it's like this was a series where it was set on Earth 2. And it was like, the kids of Batman and Power Girl was on it. And so it was like a bunch of like 2nd generation heroes. And so like that was the whole concept, is this is the world where stuff aged normally. And so when it introduces like Power Girl to you, it's like, oh, of course, this character whose adventures you can read every month. But then after Crisis, they're like, no more of this. And they don't bring it back. So it just becomes this relic where you're like, well, what the hell was that?
Oh, yeah. It's interesting. I think nowadays, maybe it is still like I feel like Marvel events are almost like, hey, this is a good way to get back into stuff. Whereas DC events are almost like, here's a culmination of everything. Which just feels more difficult for me. I don't know. We'll have to talk more about.
They kind of do both, where sometimes they're the culmination of like Secret Invasions, like the culmination of like 3 years of storytelling.
You're right.
And
yeah.
then some of them are like, we're burning everything down, issue 1, and this is the new status quo for Marvel for the next year. It kind of goes in both ways. Sometimes they're just stories.
Sometimes they're just stories.
But the other thing that's going on in this fucking book, really.
Oh, there's more. We're not done. All right, go for it.
There's that bottom bar of black and white art by
yeah.
Harbinger, like telling another story, and it's just running along the bottom. And I think this is like a really terrible storytelling device. Like, I don't understand why it's set up on this page, because you're like distracting your focus. Like, you're either reading the stuff on the top or you're reading the stuff on the bottom.
I started doing that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It doesn't make any sense with what's going on in the top pages. Whatever
Yeah.
she's narrating isn't like, she's talking about like everybody who's like died, and she's kind of giving like a recap of the whole story, but like also giving some more like detail, but it's not informing like what's above
anything.
Like if there was like a cool flash page on the main page, and then she was talking about, oh, poor Wally West, something happened with him, and then the next page is like Wonder Woman, and she's like, Wonder Woman, such an inspirational person. Like that would make sense for that storytelling device, but it really feels like a complete like backup story that's just in the main line of the book.
I think that's what it is. It's a backup story that they were like, hey, I want to do it with this many panels. Hey, look, it'll fit. Great.
It doesn't make any sense. It's terrible. It's a really terrible decision. They should have just thrown it at the back of the issue. It doesn't make any sense.
Boy.
Yeah, and I do feel like this is one of those books. I'm not always a fan of when Jonathan Hickman has those like text pages. It's like, here's what's been going on. Where like his last page is like, there's a lot of story that you're not going to get if you read the next issue of this comic without this.
I had a professor in college that was like, I didn't have time to teach this, but it's on the exam because I'm using the same exam I had for the last 27 years, and I'm not rewriting it. So study up on this.
Yeah, so it's just like here's like a 1-page thing that it's like, here's some stuff you're not gonna get if you don't read all these other books. Like I feel like if there was something like that, it would at least help us along, and then we know who we're supposed to be following. Because right now you're just like, who is the focus of this?
I think it's Lex Luthor. No, I think it's Alex Luthor.
Alex.
I think
Luthor,
it's Brainiac.
Yeah.
No, it's Anti-Monitor.
It's
No, it's Harbinger.
Simon.
No, it's Pariah. It's Simon. No, it's that cat. The new cat.
The new
Wildcat.
Wildcat.
That's the
She
focus.
has been in exactly one panel since her final page splash.
Oh yeah,
panel.
she helped them fight somebody an issue or two ago.
Yeah, last issue.
This book.
One
I'm
panel.
never gonna forget you, Crisis on
Wildcat
Infinite.
watch.
All right,
Two
I
more
think we need
issues
to
of
wrap.
this nonsense.
We need to wrap this episode up. Next episode, what's going on? Venom's about to come out. Did you know there's a Venom movie? Did you know that it's almost out?
I
Whoa.
don't. I mean, like I'm interested in it, but I really am still not sure it exists.
I've literally just not even seen the trailer. I don't know what's going on with this
It looks
thing.
fine. It's gonna be like, I mean, it's gonna be like kind of a low rent movie, but it looks fine. It
I
looks
don't know how
better
you can
than
do
what
a Venom movie without fucking Spider-Man in it. Like, what the fuck?
It's like it's basically it's gonna be more like of a Jekyll and Hyde type of thing, you know, where Tom Hardy's got this kind of monster that he's like, I don't know, and he's got this weird like accent. I don't know.
Yeah, he's doing a crazy accent.
Well, anyways, we're reading Venom Lethal Protector. It was a 6-issue miniseries from 1993. Like Venom's first series, right?
Yeah.
And one
People
of the
love
ones
it.
that is said to be pretty good. Yeah, the movie is partly based on that story, along with another one, Planet of the Symbiotes. Maybe we might read that one at some point. But for right now, just Venom Lethal Protector. Written by David Michelin. We've talked about him before. He did what?
Return to the Sinister Six.
There we go. A
And
bunch of
Birth of
Spider-Man,
Venom.
yeah.
I think he created Venom because we did.
Yeah, with Todd McFarlane and all
we
that.
did
Co-created,
that,
yes.
Yeah, co-created. We did that for the Amazing Spider-Man 300. He's a longtime Spider-Man writer. I remember not having a great time with how he wrote Mary Jane, but there's no Mary Jane in this book, so hopefully it's a little better. But
Yeah, also
yeah.
art by a longtime Spider-Man artist, Mark Bagley. Although this is 1993 Mark Bagley, which had to have been pretty early in his career, I'm imagining. I don't know if we've read anything from
I
him
don't know
before
if
this.
we've done any Mark Bagley.
We
Really?
did Amazing Spider-Man 400.
Oh, that's right. I do. Mark Bagley, most known for me for Ultimate Spider-Man, of course.
Yeah,
he-
I read a lot of Ultimate Spider-Man stuff. And Thunderbolts.
Thunderbolts.
Yeah, he took over in like around like 93, 94 of Amazing Spider-Man and did it for a long time. And then it went even longer on Ultimate Spider-Man. So
Great. Yeah, I'm excited to... I think he's one of the great Spider-Man artists of the modern era.
Well, I mean, shit, he only did 200 issues.
Hot take, hot take.
Probably
all
drawn
right,
more
so-
issues of Spider-Man than anyone.
yeah.
All right. I think we're done. Join us next time for that. Make sure you go see the Venom movie. Make sure you pre-order your tickets. Use the ticket code Some of My Friends, and you'll get nothing. They haven't gotten back to us about it.
Some of my friends are cheap.
Try it. Some of my friends are cheap as fuck. Don't give me shit. Well, Vince, Chris, it's been a fun time. Thanks so much for joining me. Our guests listening in, whatever time it might be. Have a good night.
Chris, anything happen with your stupid minds?
Oh yeah.
Yes, we had a big cartoon team up our last episode. Square Roots Podcast, a fun video game podcast that I recommend you check out if you have interest in classic RPGs. One of the 4 co-hosts of that show guested on our show a couple weeks ago, and it was a lot of fun. We did the early 2000s Ghost Ship movie, which was her recommendation, and we've got a ghost ship, a ship theme as our next episode will also be nautically themed.
Is it Battleship?
Monsterism.
Oh, that's right. You were telling me that. You were telling me about what that one was. Yeah, that's a good one.
That all sounds great. When you did say cartoon team up, I was hoping for Garfield and the Ninja Turtles to get me to stop doing drugs, but didn't work out. Sorry.
No. In fact, it's the opposite. We're pulling out a spiked razor out of our mouths and slashing you with it, and you're having an acid trip now.
Mom? Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Boy, these endings are getting weirder and weirder, huh? We love you. Join us next time. Bye.